Immigrants are welcome here. Say it clear. Immigrants are welcome here.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today with us. My name is Liza Schwartzwald. I'm the Director of Economic Justice and Family Empowerment at the New York Immigration Coalition. Today, I am joined by a strong coalition of advocates, teachers, immigrant families, and most importantly, kids. Together, we call on Mayor Adams to stop his attacks on the city's right to shelter and to eliminate the 60-day shelter limit for asylum-seeking families. That's right. Now we demand that the mayor prioritize the safety and the well-being of children and families all across the shelter system. Now, at the beginning of the school year, the Adams administration announced limits of shelter stays for asylum-seeking families to 60 days, leaving them with few to no options after that arbitrary deadline. Now, many of the families who have received these notices will be forced to leave their shelters in January, which is fast approaching. Folks, there is no excuse to re-traumatize these families. How can we allow families and children to risk living on the streets in the cold, exposed to danger, all because this administration continues to push forward inhumane policies instead of finding humane solutions that recognize the urgent needs of our newest neighbors? And this won't just affect our newcomers. With the school year in progress, this is going to disrupt schools, leaving long-standing impacts on children and pushing students down when they deserve to be pulled up. Now, does that sound like the best thing for New York families? No! I don't think so. New York City's right to shelter mandate has provided safety and stability for vulnerable New Yorkers in their journey towards self-sufficiency and independence, and it represents some of the best of what New York City has to offer. Now, it is past time for Mayor Adams' administration to move away from an emergency response and focus instead on expanding city FEPS vouchers and moving families into permanent housing. This is how we support asylum seeker families and children and create a pathway for them to thrive. So I want to thank you all again for being here today, and I am so very happy to introduce our first speaker from the United Federation of Teachers, VP of Elementary Schools, Ms. Karen Alford.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Education is a right.
That is
why we have to fight. Ready? Education is a right. That is why we have to fight. Education is a right. That is why we have to fight. Education is a right. That is why we have to fight. And that's why we're here today. I am an educator and the Vice President of Elementary Schools for the United Federation of Teachers. Right. Being a teacher is both hard work and heart work. It is hard work. And therefore, it is disheartening to learn that families and children are being subjected to the 60-day limit rule. Imagine being the new child at the school. Imagine possibly not speaking English. Already, this is tough on a student. Now imagine that every 60 days, you might have to move your home and your school and be the new student over and over and over and over again. As I think about our students' academic and mental wellness, this 60-day rule is disastrous to a child's educational well-being. This ruling harms a student's growth. Part of the learning experience is connecting to your teachers, building friendships, having continuity and stability. Schools are safe havens for our students. And so to ask families to abruptly uproot them and move them over and over again negatively affects a student's academic career. And so with that, we say shame on Mayor Adams for this disruption.
Shame!
Shame on Mayor Adams for harming students in their academic careers.
Shame!
And as a city, we must do better. We have to do better. All people are welcome here in New York City. And so let's show them that everyone is welcome and they have a place here and they have a stable place here in New York City. Why is that? Because education is a right. That is why we have to fight. Thank you.
Education is a right. That is why we have to fight. Education is a right. That is why we have to fight.
All right, thank you, Karen. Next up, I am very pleased to announce our public advocate, Jumani Williams.
Hello.
Hi.
This is Charles.
Hi, Charles.
He'd clap for you, but he's holding too many signs.
So, peace and blessing, love and light to you all.
Thank you.
And it's so good to see so many people out here with love for our fellow New Yorkers. You said something I didn't even think about. Becoming a new student every 60 days. Like, all of us can remember what it's like being a new student. Can you imagine being a new student every 60 days in another school or another neighborhood? That's unconscionable. I want to make clear that there are pressures on New York City that we don't have to have. So I want to start off by saying, if the White House would have the fortitude to go down to the border and help with the decompression strategy, it would relieve pressure. If the governor would have the courage to stand up and say that right to shelter is a statewide right, it would also help relieve the pressure. Neither of those things are happening. And because neither of those things are happening, there is a lot of pressure and responsibility when it comes to New York City. But what the mayor has to do is step up to that responsibility.
Right.
What we cannot do is allow those pressures to turn us into a city that we don't want to be. Whatever you think about this migrant crisis and this migrant issue, these human beings are starting their American journey. They are starting the journey of so many immigrants that have come to our shores. New York City is a place for immigrants to come, and we welcome them. And these young people, these students, these kids are developing memories that they will have for a lifetime of what it was like to begin their immigrant journey. What does it say to them that we first wanted to put them out on the street on Christmas week? Thank you, Mayor, for not doing that, I guess. And now, moving that forward to July, when it's January, to January, when it's just as cold. Putting people out in the street when it's just as cold. Allowing children not to get the education that is a right. Anywhere you go, children have a right to be educated. And you can't say you are providing that education if every 60 days they have to start over and over and over again. That's not good for them. It's not good for us as a city. It's not good for the family. It is destabilizing. So what we need to happen is, Mayor, you have to step up, work with the council, work with the advocates, so we can provide a better way for young people, for children to get an education. Because this is our tomorrow. And we want to have an educated tomorrow. We want to have people who feel good about the experiences that they had. We cannot play this game from Texas to here, who can be the most cruel, so nobody wants to come. We should play the game, who can be the most humane. Who can provide the best service? Who can provide the best that America has to offer? And I'm hoping, Mayor Adams, that New York City wins that game. Peace and blessings. Love and light to you all.
All right. It sounds like our public advocate knows what's going on, and our teachers know what's going on, and I got at least one other person who knows what's going on, and that's the comptroller, Brad Lander.
All right. right, thank you. It's good to be out here with my new friend Charles, my friend Rafi. They're making me think about someone I just met a couple weeks ago. I met this young woman named Yaris Lopez. I met her right before Thanksgiving. Yaris is Garifunash, grew up on the Honduran coast, indigenous Afro-Caribbean community. And when Yaris was 11, her neighbors tried to burn her house down. So her mom scooped up she and her sister and fled without anything and walked across the continent. I really had some harrowing times along the way. Got separated when they got to the border from her sister, who wound up having to cross on her own. They landed in New York City, where they were homeless. Her mom got assaulted, but the blessing that emerged in Yari's life was her public school. And 6 months later, she was speaking remarkable English. And a couple of years later, she graduated valedictorian of her New York City public high school. And this spring, she's gonna graduate from Lehman College. And this summer, she was a volunteer at the Asylum Seeker Application Center that we've set up in Midtown. And she helped her first families file their asylum application. And Yaris, you know, is gonna be a remarkable immigration attorney and one of the future leaders of New York City. And looking at these students that we have here, this is part of the future of New York City. And Yaris and these kids that are at PS 124 around the corner from my house and are in hundreds of public schools throughout our city right now, they are the future leaders of this city if we will provide them the education and the support that we did to Yaris and to thousands of other people that can help them grow and thrive. And this is the choice that we're making right now. Because if we let those kids stay in the shelters that they're in and stay in the public schools that are providing them the only stability that they have had in many, many months through remarkable trauma, then some of them will become the elected officials and the immigration attorneys and the scientists and the singers and creators of tomorrow. And if we don't, if we kick them out of those shelters, if after 60 days we send them to another school or tell them you could get bused back across the city and continue rolling forward the trauma that they have already experienced, then we're not just robbing them of some stability and the right to grow and thrive. We are robbing New York City of the leaders of tomorrow. And let's be clear, we are betraying the command we have from that statue in the harbor that's supposed to be reminding us of who we are. I don't know how many This American Life listeners we have, but I hope you all will listen to the episode that just dropped this weekend and get to the part where these girls who are from families seeking asylum organized this amazing dance party in their New York City public school. And think about the fact that what we could be doing is helping that happen in our schools right now. And then, how many of you have been to St. Bridget's on the Lower East Side, where we're doing the opposite of that? I really would urge you to go there. There we're doing the opposite. We're making people stand out in the freezing cold, kicking them from shelter to shelter, denying them the basic stability that human beings need, really for no reason at all. And I would just tell you this, we are not going to do that to families in New York City, right?
Right.
But more than that, we can't just kick people from shelter to shelter. So let's just say it plainly. Every single family that has a kid in New York City public schools needs to be able to stay in that school and in the shelter that's near it. That's what the right to shelter promises. That's what New York City's public schools promise. And that is the promise that we are here today to demand remain strong. So I want to say such a big thank you to all these students, first and foremost. Let's give our young people a big hand for coming out in the cold. They know what their classmates deserve. They know what the future of this city demands. So let's just be really clear. We're out here a lot in exactly this space, speaking on this issue and that issue. But on this one, we're just not going to allow it We are not going to allow families to be displaced from their shelters, kids to be kicked out of their schools. We aren't going to let it happen. So Mayor Adams, there's a lot of different things you could consider doing, but one of them is not displacing our kids from their public schools. We won't stand for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the comptroller. Now, we clearly have a lot of voices here, but one that we want to make sure that we uplift are the voices of the families that are going to be having to leave these shelters. So my colleague Valeria Paz Reyes is here to share one of those stories.
Muy buenas tardes, muchísimas gracias. Vamos a hacer. Adams, escucha, estamos en la lucha. Adams, escucha, estamos en la lucha. Adams, escucha, estamos en la lucha. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to say my name is Valeria Paz Reyes. I'm the manager for organizing and strategy for the New York Immigration Coalition, and I'm not here to tell my story. I wanted to have those stories told by the asylum seekers, but Mayor Adams is making them believe that they don't have any rights, and we know that that's not correct. So I'm gonna start telling you about Ariana's story. I'm gonna start in Spanish. Buenos días, mi nombre es Ariana. Junto con mi esposo y 3 hijos, llegué a la ciudad de Nueva York desde Venezuela, impulsada por la esperanza de mejores oportunidades y un futuro más prometedor para mis familias en los Estados Unidos. Como madre, me esfuerzo por brindar el mejor futuro posible a mis hijos. Mi esposo y yo decidimos embarcarnos en este viaje a los Estados Unidos para ofrecer las mejores oportunidades educativas que nuestro país de origen no podía proporcionar. Nueva York es el lugar donde soñamos con comenzar nuestras vidas, pero hasta ahora hemos enfrentado diversos desafíos y obstáculos. Mi familia y yo hemos estado viviendo en un refugio y recientemente recibimos un límite de 60 días, notificándonos que tenemos que encontrar un nuevo lugar para vivir. Esto presenta un nuevo desafío, ya que me preocupa qué sucederá con mi familia, especialmente mis hijos. Cada día vivo en constante incertidumbre acerca de dónde y cuándo encontraremos nuestros próximos lugares para vivir. Me preocupa el impacto potencial en mis hijos, ya que están en el proceso de establecer sus nuevas vidas aquí y adaptarse a sus escuelas. Aunque vivir en un refugio no es mi ubicación preferida, ha proporcionado a mi familia un techo sobre su cabeza, algo que no doy por sentado. Insto a esta administración a reflexionar sobre los impactos que estos límites en los refugios tienen en madres como yo y a los niños que ven directamente afectados. Lo único que quiero es tener un lugar para vivir con mi familia, donde ninguno de nosotros tenga que preocuparse por una carta diciendo que debemos mudarnos a otro lugar. Esto aliviará la preocupación de futuros desplazamientos y permitiría que mi familia crear una base para construir nuestras vidas y proporcionar en esta ciudad. Now, English. Good afternoon, my name is Ariana, and with my husband and 3 children, we arrived in New York City from Venezuela, driven by hope for better opportunity and a better future for my family in the United States. As a mother, I strive to provide the best possible future for my children. My husband and I chose to embark on this journey to the United States to offer them better educational opportunities that our home country could not provide. New York City is where we dream of beginning our new lives, but so far we encountered various challenges and obstacles. My family and I have been living in a shelter, and recently we received a 60-day limit letter notifying that we had to find a new place to live. This presents a new challenge as I worry about what will happen to my family, especially my children. Every day I live in constant uncertainty about where and when we'll find our next place to live. I'm worried about the potential impact on my children as they are in the process of establishing their new lives here and adjusting to their school. While living in a shelter is not my preferred location, it has provided my family with a roof over their head, something that I do not take for granted. I urge this administration to think of the impacts these shelter limits had on mothers like myself and the children who are directly affected. All I want is to have a place to live with my family where none of us have to worry about a letter telling us we had to relocate somewhere else. This will alleviate the concerns of future displacement, and it will allow my family to create a foundation for ourselves to build our lives and thrive in this city. Thank you so much.
Your name?
Valeria Paz Reyes.
Spell it to us, please.
We can get it from
Yes.
Paz.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Valeria. All right. Now we've heard from a few people, but one we haven't heard from yet our students. So we have a very brave gentleman from PS 87, Mr. Reed Cerrito, who's going to talk about his experience because his friends are getting pushed out of school. All right, let's give it up for Reed.
Hi, my name is Reed and I go to PS 87 and my friends are scared and I am scared for they don't know where they're going. I don't know where they're going and I don't want my friends to be homeless or on the streets or someplace that they don't know, and I don't want my friendship to be broken. So please be the 60-day rule, do not include my friend.
All right, everybody, education is a right.
That is why we have to fight. Education is a right. That is why we have to fight. Education is a right. That is why we have to fight.
All right, following our student is the chair of education at the city council, Ms. Rita Joseph.
Good afternoon to my future leaders who will one day sit in my seat, who will run this city, and who will make thoughtful decisions on how we treat our citizens. I thank you. Give my students a hand. I am so proud of each and every one of you for being out here. At 19 years old, I put on my first rally. So I understand what you're doing and I support that. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Councilmember Rita Joseph, Chair of the Education Committee. As a forever educator and a mom of four, it is unfortunate that advocates and my colleagues in government have to be here once again to fight for something so basic and necessary. A few weeks ago, myself and Councilmember Hanif, Chair of the Committee on Immigration, held an oversight hearing on the experiences of immigrant students, particularly our asylum seekers in the public school system. It remained clear that the city does not have a substantial plan for our children when the policy is in effect. There's absolutely no justification for our families to be put in unsafe, destabilized, and inhumane situations. This administration continues to push for short-sighted half measures by placing unnecessary burdens on our New York City students, by providing excuses rather than solutions. So Mayor Adams continues to blame asylum seekers for his administration's poor management. As we approach the coldest days of winter, it is unjust to put our children and families out as they're settling in our new schools and new communities. And you heard from our students, they're making friends, they're talking. How could you destabilize that? Now more than ever, we must lead with compassion, care, empathy, especially when it comes to our youngest New Yorkers. Mayor Adams' administration cannot move forward with a 60-day policy will destabilize our students, and we must halt this plan to remove families from our shelters. I can't stress it enough. An educator for 22 years, I saw what destabilizing our students do to them, the trauma it caused. In 2021, I was one of the elected just coming into office who traveled to Texas, to the borders, and saw students and saw families and talked to them. How long did you take to get here? I walked 5 months, 6 months to get here. That's trauma. To put this on top of students again, it's even more trauma. And how do we unpack this trauma? So I'm calling on this administration to do the right thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, council member. We're so glad you're here with us today, although we wish for better reasons. Next up, I'm proud to introduce Naveed Hassan from No Limits Learning.
Yes.
I want to go with this chant first. Education is our right. That is why we have to fight. Education is our right.
That is why we have to fight. Education is a right. That is why we have to fight.
Education is our right. That is why we have to fight. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to everyone who came out today to speak on behalf of our most vulnerable children. I want to specifically recognize some of the long-term partners we have in the efforts to support all families living in New York. Former Manhattan Borough President Ruth Messenger, City Council Member Gail Brewer, Cheryl Parker, Gina Cerrito, and Erica DiPiero, who among many others have been instrumental in doing actual boots-on-the-ground work to address needs and build and sustain community. My name is Naveed Hassan, and I'm founder of a public education nonprofit, No Limits Learning. I have 2 children, ages 3 and 9, at PS 145, the Bloomingdale School, a traditional Title I public school in Upper Manhattan. For the last 21 months, it has hosted more than 130 newly arrived immigrant students from all over the world. Since the start of the Ukraine war, we welcomed refugees from Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Not long after, buses from Texas brought us dozens of families from South and Central America. Our community, assisted by local houses of worship, neighbors, and friends, welcomed all of these students with open arms. Volunteers put in hundreds of hours of work to stabilize these newly arrived families and their socio-emotional circumstances. About 14 months ago, we could say that the students had become integrated into our kids' classrooms, with true friendships and parent relationships being formed. Everyone was learning together, a hallmark of inclusive and responsive education. I'm also an elected parent volunteer serving in the New York City Board of Education, the Panel for Educational Policy. We have seen since July 2022 almost 40,000 new New Yorker students admitted to more than 800 of our city's public schools. This continuous flow is an amazing increase in students and makes up the entirety of enrollment stabilization, an increase for public schools this past year, an increase for the first time in 8 years. One of the main things we've learned over this whole experience is how poorly the city has been serving less well-off residents, which includes more than 100,000 students already living in precarious housing situations such as shelters. It is also significantly socioeconomically integrated schools which previously hadn't been due to school zone lines. This setup allows students, previously unheard, to have strong advocates in their kids' classrooms and who we hope will be heard by the mayor today at this gathering. The 60-day rule disrupts classrooms just as newly arrived students are learning well, together with their long-term New Yorker classmates. The impact goes beyond individual families being forced to vacate. Schools are seeing a revolving door of students, leading to an interruption of instruction and community building, as well as staffing and budget volatility. This chaos makes local families reconsider their public school options. Our schools are just beginning to stabilize after the public health crisis, and any upheaval from students exiting the system is gratuitous and unnecessary. Do not evict new New Yorker families. Instead, provide permanent housing solutions and a path towards self-sufficiency. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveed. And y'all, this does not just affect kids' education, it also affects their health. So next up, we have Hudson Lee from Cornell University Medical School.
Thank you so much to everyone who came out here today. My name is Hudson, and I'm a medical student and a housing justice advocate. And it's clear to us from our time working in the hospital and in the clinic that so much of health lies outside of healthcare. Many of our medical interventions simply don't stick. They don't yield sustainable impacts in health without the safety and security of permanent housing.
Right.
Physical health and mental health require the safety and security of a home, and while our shelter system is so imperfect, it's the best that many of our children and our families have. If we take even that away, where does that leave children and families who have no other option? In addition, interrupting children's education during such a formative time, it has such downstream effects on their mental health, their social and cognitive development, and the formation of community and support systems. Being forced to move to a new country due to war, violence, climate disaster, this is already so traumatic. Let's not re-traumatize our children by making them, by taking schooling away from them, by uprooting them every 60 days, making them start all over again. The right to shelter here in our city has allowed us to avoid the street homelessness of other cities, and especially with the weather getting colder, think about where that puts children and families as they lie in limbo while our understaffed and overworked housing services are unable to appropriately place them in a new home. There are more practical and humane solutions than a shelter stay limit, as outlined by various organizations, including the Coalition for the Homeless. Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul must name this for what it is: a housing crisis, not a migrant crisis.
Right.
We must do better, not just to secure the physical and mental health of the children and families coming here to our city, but their education, their livelihood, their humanity, and their future. Then, as immigrants have done for our city time and time again, they can truly join the rest of us New Yorkers in working together to lift up our city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, two more guys, because I know it's cold out. Very pleased to introduce Councilmember Gail Brewer.
Ruth Messenger knows the most. I just want to tell you. I'm glad to be here. I have to say I don't usually get upset about things, but I'm really upset at the notion that students from migrant families will be taken out of school in public school. Really, really upset. I'll tell you why. First of all, I want to thank the Department of Education, because in the districts that I've seen and the schools, between the teachers, the principals, and the other parents, a whole lot of effort is going into those students. And guess what? Those students are fabulous. And the dual language is what everybody needs. Everybody in the United States should speak two languages, and these students are helping the students speak two languages or more languages. And in addition, these families will end up being amazing Americans and citizens if in fact they have the opportunity to get the kind of education. And when you educate the students, then the parents also get support. There is no need at all to pull these kids out of public school. I don't care, 30 days, 10 days, 60 days. Now, it's my understanding from talking to teachers in the schools, some parents are finding families and relatives in other parts of the country. Fine, let them do it on their own, but don't push them out. Right. Do it if they have families and they want to go, fine. But for God's sake, do not take them out of school. And in addition, you know what? Those families are bringing in money to the schools. Manhattan schools were under-enrolled. Yes. Right. These amazing students have brought tons of money to the schools because we don't want the budget cuts. That's another discussion. But the point is that these students have brought asset and support to the schools, and that helps everybody. So Mr. Mayor, for goodness sake, stop trying to take these families out of our schools. There is no one reason at all, I can't think of any reason why those parents and those students shouldn't continue in our public schools. It is good for everybody. I want to thank everybody who's been helpful. That guy over there, Naveed, he's unbelievable. He has been helping all, as well as many other parent associations. So thank you everybody who's here. And I have to say, this is almost number one, I hope, on everybody's agenda. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're all cold. All right, so yes, exactly. So, you know, we don't want families out here experiencing this overnight. You can imagine. So to close us out today, Dr. Henry Love, VP of Policy and Planning at WIN.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start with a really simple fact. It's inhumane for any child, whether they're in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Mumbai, to be homeless and on the street. But it's particularly disgusting in the world's wealthiest city, where we have over 100 billionaires, the most in the world, and over 300,000 millionaires. If we were a country, our city alone would be bigger. Our economy would be bigger than South Korea and Australia. The mayor says we can't afford it to support our newest students fleeing from unfathomable violence, but I disagree on both moral and economic grounds. A new report that the comptroller showed that in fact we could be saving $1.6 billion less than planned in fiscal year 2025 than what the Adams administration had floated out. Additionally, my organization WIN, as well as the New York Immigration Coalition, have released reports that show the city could save $3 billion annually by providing real housing solutions like vouchers to migrant families who are now living in expensive emergency shelters. Mr. Mayor, stop scapegoating and spreading misinformation. The money to house our children exists. It is a conscious policy choice to recognize this crisis, to have the funds to do something about it, and to choose to look the other way, to accept this horrifying status quo. At WIN, we house over 3,500 children every night in our shelters. In normal conditions, our families know too well how difficult it is to travel from the South Bronx to Far Rockaway just to get to school. We know the physical, psychological tolls being in shelter has in normal times. We cannot disrupt these students' education, and we will not stand for evicting children on the streets in the dead of winter. We must end the 60-day rule and uphold the right to shelter. Generations will look back on us and ask us, where was our humanity in this city? Mr. Mayor, where is your humanity?
That's right. Where is
Right,
it?
where is it?
Now we're going to go on a little march, and Ms. Ruth Messenger from the American Jewish World Service is going to take us there. So,
I'm Ruth Messenger, I'm the former Manhattan Borough President, and I am a second-generation American. And most of you who are in the press are second or third-generation Americans. You need to own up to that. The city needs to own up to that. I was going to ask this distinguished vice president from the UFT, I would love it if the UFT would determine how many of its newer members are first and second generation Americans. Because that's exactly what people who have been educated here do. They choose to go into the school system and teach. It's what my grandfather did. It's what the city was built on. This is an immigrant city, and to disrupt the lives of these families and these children is hurting the future of every single one of us. I want to salute the parents in these schools and the teachers and administrators and principals who have stepped forward to help the migrant families. They've done it out of love and compassion, but they've also done it because they know they were immigrants, and they know that the future of this city depends on every one of these children, regardless of background, nationality, or color, becoming a New Yorker, bringing the resilience that got them to our borders into this city and building for our future. Thank you.
all right.
All right, guys, we're going to head for a march. We're going to head out this way with the kids leading us.